So Mark Carney is addressing the World Economic Forum. I always just remember like the right wing memes about it. You're gonna own nothing, blah blah blah. But whatever. Let's see what he's got to say.
When convenient, that trade rules were enforced asymmetrically. And we knew that international law applied with varying rigor depending on the identity of the accused or the victim. This fiction was useful. And American hegemony in particular helped provide public goods, open sea lanes, a stable financial system, collective security, and support for frameworks for resolving disputes. So we placed the sign in the window. We participated in the rituals. And we largely avoided calling out the gaps between rhetoric and reality.
That's actually not a bad summary of the situation. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's actually pretty good. Okay. Let's see what else.
This bargain no longer works. But more recently, great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons. Tariffs as leverage, financial infrastructure as coercion, supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited.
Well, that is how things were done, like, I think like pre-World War One. That's basically how things were done, yeah.
You cannot live within the lie of mutual benefit through integration when integration becomes the source of your subordination.
Yeah.
That they must develop greater strategic autonomy in energy, food, critical minerals, in finance and supply chains. And this impulse is understandable. A country that can't feed itself, fuel itself, or defend itself has few options. When the rules no longer protect you, you must protect yourself. But let's be clear-eyed about where this leads. A world of fortresses will be poorer, more fragile, and less sustainable.
Kind of similar to what it was like before World War One, because you can't rely on the centralization. You can't say, okay, China, you're gonna make all this stuff. Okay, United States, you're gonna do all the policing stuff. Okay, Switzerland, you're gonna do all the finance, or I guess London, really, you're gonna do all the financial stuff. A little bit of help from the States. You can't really do that if every country has to do everything. Like you think about like a city and you have like your cable companies, right? And a lot of when I was growing up, the cable companies had like defined zones. It's like, okay, well, we had Videotron and Shaw. Those were our two cable companies when I was growing up. Doesn't matter. And they would say, okay, well, Videotron can have this side of the city and Shaw can have that side of the city. And that's just who the cable companies are, because it's stupid to have to run multiple lines to every house. But what if there were, 6 different cable companies and they all had their own network? Like, what would you do then? You'd have to run separate lines, 6 separate lines to every house. And then people say, oh, well, no, they share the common infrastructure. And it's like, yeah, but then you have like the common good problem, right? Because there's no differentiating factor between what they're offering you. Because the thing that they're offering you is the infrastructure. It's a kind of like what happens with the mobile market in Canada. We have 3 main carriers. It's the same thing. They all have their own different networks. So we actually have redundant cell phone coverage. So here's Alberta. Here's the main part of Alberta, You have, this is like mainly where all the people live, is right here. And then out here is like the patch and forests and sticks. Let's see here. So you see we have, look, we got TELUS. So we'll unselect TELUS. You see Rogers, unselect Rogers. We got Bell. It doesn't have much coverage out here. And then purple, Saskatoon, really? No, not Saskatoon. Who is that? Explorer? I'm Explorer. We still have a couple of Videotron. Very few in the cities. And Freedom Mobile, mainly in the cities. Bell, mainly in the cities. So look at that. So in Edmonton, let's say, right? We got Bell, Rogers, Freedom, Explorer, and TELUS. And Videotron. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers of redundant coverage in that. Like, why? That's just wasteful. What do we need that for? But instead, no, and now everybody's going to have their own financial hub. Everybody's going to have their own, their own military. Everybody's going to have their own, oil and gas infrastructure, or their, whatever. Everybody's going to have their own manufacturing. And it's going to, because, we're not working together, we're all just working in competition with each other now as countries, going to have to end up having a lot of redundancy like this. Like we have 6 layers of coverage. We're going to have to, every country's going to have their own stuff, and then we lose out on those extra resources. We lose out on having specialized things, and that kind of sucks. Now, I'm not for the old world order where it's like, well, we just extract minerals from third world countries and they suck and they have shitty living conditions, whatever. Like that, of course not. That's stupid. But this isn't going to fix that. In fact, it's going to make it worse. Okay. It basically just means what I was talking about, that everybody's dependent on everybody else. And by the way, that doesn't change. That's something, but if I have my own military, my own manufacturing, my own, whatever, and we're not dependent on anybody. It's like, that's not true. First, you are dependent on the workers of your own country. That, like, you're not going to get away from that. And also, stuff happens in the world. You can't stop it from happening. It's going to happen. I mean, look at climate change. That's going to require, like, everybody to be working together. And if everybody's just working in their own little nation bubble, it's going to be a big problem.
Sovereignty that was once grounded in rules but will increasingly be anchored in the ability to withstand pressure.
Yep.
This room knows this is classic risk management. Risk management comes at a price.
Yep.
But that cost of strategic autonomy, of sovereignty, can also be shared. Collective investments in resilience are cheaper than everyone building their own fortresses. Shared standards reduce fragmentations.
Whoa, Carny, you're starting to sound a little woke there. He's talking about collective self-interest. Whoa.
Complementarities are positive sum. And the question for middle powers like Canada is not whether to adapt to the new reality. We must. The question is whether we adapt by simply building higher walls, or whether we can do something more ambitious. The prohibition of the use of force except when consistent with the UN Charter, and respect for human rights.
Well, we got some work to do in that regard. But that's okay. That's okay. We'll let it slide. We're on the World Economic.
Since my government took office, we have cut taxes on incomes, on capital gains, and business investment. We have removed...
Yeah. By the way, we gave a bunch of rich people some money. that's how we manage that. Like, see, the problem is he's right about everything, but then he's just like, yeah, but the only way we could do it is by giving wealthy people more money. And it's like, I don't think that the wealthy people are transnational, right? I know that sounds pretty woke, transnational, but they are. Especially when they're Americans and they run CSAM generators, but you don't want to ban them because, hey, we don't want to piss off the rich people now.
We are fast-tracking $1 trillion of investments in energy, AI, critical minerals, new trade corridors.
AI. Of course. Yeah. Again, his whole description of what was happening was 100% correct. Now, I actually don't have any disagreements. That was actually pretty good. But then he just kind of defaults into neoliberal, yes, so you know what we've done? You see, we have given rich people a ton of money to solve the problem because governments can't solve the problem. I articulated the exact problem to you, but only rich people can solve it. And the only way they can solve it is if we give them all the money, okay? And power. They need the power too. Sorry. They need both.
We're negotiating free trade pacts with India, ASEAN, Thailand, Philippines, and Mercosur.
The reason why he needs all these trade deals is because the wealthy people are transnational.
And one of the largest per capita contributors to its defense and security.
Based
on Arctic sovereignty, we stand firmly with Greenland and Denmark and fully support their unique right to determine Greenland's future. Great powers can afford for now to go it alone. They have the market size, the military capacity, and the leverage to dictate terms. Middle powers do not. But when we only negotiate bilaterally with a hegemon, we negotiate from weakness. We accept what's offered. We compete with each other to be the most accommodating.
Yep.
This is not sovereignty.
He's right about that. And you can even see that in provincial politics and, you know, probably state politics too. You know, look at Amazon's HQ2, which I don't even know if I don't think that ever was actually built, because it was a big scam. For anybody that's not familiar with that situation, Amazon said, "Oh, we have our headquarters. I think it's in Seattle. We have our headquarters in Seattle, but we want to build HQ2. That's going to be a new headquarters, and you all gotta, you gotta line up your bids." And so they did, and everybody was falling over themselves to get HQ2 because it was going to give 9,000 jobs or something ridiculous. And New York was like one of the front runners, and then AOC got it killed, just through activism, mobilizing people, saying like, don't give Amazon a bunch of money to set up a warehouse here. And yeah, it turns out it was all a big lie, and the whole point of it was to get info on the cities, free intel. They did, normally if you want to set up a business somewhere, you actually have to get that intel yourself. Oh, where are the thoroughfares? How does the city like to deliver in? What kind of what kind of structure does it have? How can city council, what can they do to accommodate logistics and stuff? They got all that intel for free. They didn't have to do anything, just by announcing HQ2 thing. It's always like this. It's always like this and this is why I'm skeptical of it. Oh, well, I did record-breaking investment. It's like, yeah, that's wonderful. It's too bad that, again, you're saying, oh, well, that's not sovereignty to negotiate with a hegemon. Well, guess what? It's not sovereignty to have to negotiate that way with a transnational corporation either. They just dictate terms. And you have to do it, or they'll just go somewhere else. And so, it's kind of funny that he's talking about like this in one aspect, but not like this in the other aspect. And that's the neoliberalism. There it is.
It's the performance of sovereignty while accepting subordination. Nostalgia is not a strategy. But we believe that from the fracture...
He's right about that. What's funny is that is like the far right strategy. Is to try to create nostalgia. That's how come they're always trying to hit you with like, oh, in the 1960s, blah, 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 blah. And a lot of that is also like whitewashed, white supremacist nostalgia. But it is nostalgia. And it is not a strategy for living in the real world. He's right. But it certainly is a strategy for just ginning up hate.
Almost uniquely vulnerable to pressure because of the extent of your trade dependence.
What? What? What happened? What's this? What is this? What? Sausage.
That's not there. There are pockets of extreme pressure, without question, in Canada.
What the fuck was
headline.
That? What happened? What just happened? What is this? Isn't this? This is Guardian News. Why is there in the middle of this some kind of